Welcome back to the channel, trainers. My name is OrhoChris. I am your catching coach, and today we're going to be discussing the 3 rules that you need for success in the Jungle Cup. Let's get into it. How's it going? Welcome back to the channel. We've got about 11 days left in the August Mirror Cup, and if you're running in your local communities the Jungle Cup, I did manage to pull out a 5-0 win in the July run of Jungle Cup using 3 very simple rules. First off, as we know, Vigoroth is a monster in the Jungle Cup. He's got very few true hard counters, if any true hard counters. He does have potentially Heracross to look out for. He does get beat, for example, if he's on even shields in a fresh matchup with Wigglytuff. But for the most part, there's nothing where if you lead with the wrong Pokemon in your initial start, that you can't switch into Vigoroth and at least get enough energy or enough of a lead with energy to then burn a shield or cause a lot of damage to the next Pokemon that swaps in. So rule number 1, every round, run Vigoroth. That's what I did. Rule number 2, your other 2 Pokemon that pair with Vigoroth need to be a synergistic pair that have coverage that protects each other's weaknesses. For example, Lantern and Knockdown. Lantern is going to get eaten up by the ground types, or ground attacks is going to get eaten up by grass types. So you need something that's going to beat a ground type attacker or a grass type. And we've got Knockdown. Third and final rule. Vigoroth is your safe switch, which means you cannot lead with something that is going to be a losing matchup for Vigoroth. What does that mean? So Lantern, if you look at their team and you're like, oh, it's going to be an awesome lead. They've got Knockdown, they've got another electric attack or something else where you're like this, and also just Lantern's a boss. If you lead Lantern and they've got Venusaur, you cannot swap in Vigoroth. It's going to be in a deficit with energy into a Venusaur if your Lantern gets the wrong matchup. He's a safe switch, but he needs to be able to switch into something where the Pokemon he's switching into, if he has a hard counter, or at least a counter that's a check or a soft counter, he can get ahead on energy gain and when by the time they swap in. Those are the 3 rules. Vigoroth is on every single line of 3. Potentially, if you're going for 2 games and they've started to identify your strategy, you can deviate for the 3rd match, but otherwise, Vigoroth is on every team. Number 2, your 2 other Pokemon need to cover each other's weaknesses. The 3rd rule, you need to lead with something that is not going to be something that will beat Vigoroth. That's it. Pretty simple. And before I hop into the battles, I probably should walk through my team selection. Of course, I had Vigoroth and Knockdown. Those were the 2, I think, most dominating Pokemon in this particular meta. Vigoroth, as I mentioned previously, has very few hard counters. It does a ton of damage. Nothing resists both the fast move of counter as well as either Body Slam or Bulldoze. That was the preferred moveset that I was running. Some folks went with Brick Break for the extra super effective damage into opposing Vigoroth, but I thought that Body Slam with the stab bonus and the buff that it got a few months back was just the right move at this point. Also had Knockdown to mow down all of the grass types and the bugs. There was a lot of good counters, or at least not hard counters, but soft counters to Vigoroth, such as Venomoth and, for example, Vespiquen. And those 2 Pokemon were things that I wanted to have a solid answer for, and that's why I was running Knockdown. The prevalence of Noctowl in the meta did require having a solid anti-flyer. Mine of choice was Lantern. I thought that it had good neutral matchups in the situations where, for example, the Alolan Geodude line being weak to fighting type moves, it was a hard thing to really swap into. With it had a lot of questionable matchups with regard to how prevalent Venusaur was going to be with regard to Lantern as a rock type, taking super effective damage. So I wanted something that was going to be a solid anti-flyer that would be able to take out Noctowl, but also be able to have better neutral matchups against the opposing electric types. And then Venusaur is just, with Frenzy Plant, is just a solid Pokemon all around. It has, because of the poison subtyping, it resists the counter damage that Vigoroth was bringing in its fast move, but it had an awesome matchup against Lantern and against a lot of the other electric types, minus potentially the steel electrics. So I thought that that was a solid all-around team, and I wanted something that was going to provide additional coverage to Vigoroth, and that's why I went with Venomoth with the confusion damage. The hardest counter to Vigoroth in this cup is going to be Heracross, and Venomoth as a bug type is going to, one, resist the counter damage of Heracross. As a poison type, it's also going to doubly resist then the counter damage, and as a confusion user, it's just going to wreck Heracross. I ran 2 Jungle Cups in July. The first, I had Vespiquen instead, and as the meta developed, I realized that I really was sorely missing a more solid Heracross counter, because this strategy really relies on having Vigoroth be able to switch in unanswered, and you don't scare off a Heracross in the back with something like Vespiquen. Whereas if you've got a Charm user, or if you've got Venomoth, you've at least, as a Heracross user, got to think, is this really going to be worth it for me to swap in or to even use it in my trio? And my first matchup was against fellow Challenger 15, Trev 20. He was running Beedrill, OrhoChris, Lantern, Noctowl, Victreebel, and Vigoroth. I think everyone in this tournament, actually, now that I think of it, was running Vigoroth, and most were also running Noctowl. So here in the first matchup, we are leading with OrhoChris, because that's going to beat most things that Vigoroth is, or at least it's going to not have the same losing matchups as Vigoroth, to have it as a safe switch. We're not worried about, for the most part, any of the charge moves that Vigoroth has. Bulldoze will at least do neutral damage. Most folks, however, run out of habit, spam Body Slam. So we're going to get off the Heavy Slam, try to at least burn a shield. Vigoroth, although really strong in this meta, cannot take a whole lot from as far as charge move damage. So here we're going to probably eat another Body Slam. And now we're just trying to get to another Heavy Slam before fainting out. And it might have been that he was trying to farm me a little bit too much, because I think in that matchup, Vigoroth should be able to win that without having to burn the second shield. So now we've got 2 shields down, and he's got a fairly well-loaded Vigoroth, and we're going to try to... So he's going to save all that energy, and at this point, I know that I've got Lantern in the back, not Lantern, Noctowl in the back, but I'm not going to switch out because I don't know if he's got Rock Tomb at this point, and I'm going to be behind on energy. And it's not worth it for me to try to swap into my OrhoChris either, because there's the potential for him to have in the back Noctowl or something else that's going to be able to do super effective damage. So here we're going to come and unload all of those body slams that we had stored up. We're going to get that knockout there. And now we've got Lantern. I'm fairly low on energy, so I could have potentially tried to go out to the farm up to the bulldoze, but I wasn't confident given my low energy that I was going to be able to get there. Here I just want to get enough damage done that even though I've got a shield, I'm up a shield, you don't want to let the Lantern farm all of the energy out of the Vigoroth and then be able to get off to 2 of the Thunderbolts. So here we're going to shield because I think that I can get to another of the sky attacks, and then he's going to have to burn whatever energy he has to knock out this knocked out, and then whatever minimal energy is left I can come in with Vigoroth. And that one is going to be at that point GG. Oh, even survived it. And knocked out and take a hit. So in round 2, we are going up against Arctiguana. He is running Fortress, Vigoroth, Lantern, Noctowl, Victreebel, and Vespiquen. A team fairly similar to the one that I ran in the other, the earlier run-through Jungle Cup. This cup here was my 10x cup, but I had run through once more, and as I previously mentioned, I think having a stronger counter for Heracross so that Vigoroth really can come out and shine. I did swap out. I had Vespiquen in that first cup, and went with Venomoth this time for the better matchup against Heracross. And so here we decided to lead with Lantern, and he has got Fortress. We're not worried about really Heavy Slam nor Rock Tomb. Earthquake, if we eat that, would be a bad situation. So we're going to try to work up to at least, and he's going to decide to dump out. Now I got to jump out of here quick because we're low enough energy that those Razor Leafs are just going to shred into a Lantern. Now here I probably could have farmed for a little bit longer. If I were him, I probably wouldn't shield just so that you can come in with a harder counter if you've got one in the back and farm Noctowl in return. But here, Sludge Bomb, although Noctowl is a tank, a high attack version of a poison type stab, Sludge Bomb is still something you're not going to want to eat too recklessly. So now we've got Noctowl. Now we're going to burn this energy. It's arguable whether or not it was better to save that, because we're going to try to get into the matchup with Lantern where we've got enough energy left on the opposing Noctowl to actually do some decent farming. But here he decides to not shield, so we're going to go into this final matchup with a bunch of energy. We've already got enough saved energy on Lantern. He does get to the shield. I kind of got reckless and was trying to farm too much. So we're going to save all of this energy and come in with Vigoroth, because he's going to have to burn that energy in order to take Vigoroth out, but that's going to enable me to then avoid the KO damage from something like an Earthquake with Lantern. And I've still got all of that stored up energy in the back for with Lantern also, so I'm just trying to burn those shields here and ultimately get to a matchup where Lantern can just come in and finish with its final charge move. And there we go. And that is GG. And our third round matchup is against a very talented trainer by the name of Gahinzel. I think I'm saying that right. If it's not, I think I'm close. I could be way off. But again, same strategy, and he may be running a similar strategy. He's got Lantern as a lead. I don't recall off the top of my head who had CMP in this matchup. So we're gonna immediately go out, burn at least one Thunderbolt, hoping to at least draw a shield or do a decent amount of damage. And here, he didn't eat it. I'm sorry, he didn't shield it. So I'm going to mirror that. We're not going to even try to undertap. Immediately jump right into the next charge move. And as you can see, back a month ago, the charge move strategy or technique was not what it is today. So here, I'm gonna eat this Thunderbolt. It's arguable whether or not that was the right play, but I think that I've got enough that I can get to a good lead on energy gain and feint down the Lantern without having to actually burn another shield, which we ultimately end up doing there. So here, we've got Noctowl coming in. My best counter to Noctowl, of course, is the Lantern. That is now gone. So we're going to stick in with Vigoroth and just try to burn through all of this energy. So now we're going to swap out. Because I know that he's already burnt his best Lantern counter, we can fairly safely swap and not have to worry about eating like a Thunderbolt from Lantern or anything else. So now we've got that final shield gone, and we've got two shields. And in one of these, at least, we're going to be willing to tank. Pulled out the excellent there. And while Body Slam, it charges so quickly, but it does a decent amount of damage, but it's not like a bigger energy move where it's like you really want to use the shield. You kind of feel bad having to burn the shield in that matchup. So here, he did overcharge and have two Body Slams ready. So I don't want him to get to another Body Slam, but we are able to pull out, getting enough damage from the fast move to knock out the Vigoroth. Oh, I thought we knocked it out. I guess he swapped out. So that is the end of round one, game one in round three. Here we are going into round two. Sorry, game two of round three. And here, this is a pretty good matchup. We're receiving neutral damage, or we're taking neutral damage from the Vespiquen, but it does have the flying subtyping, so it is going to take super effective damage from our Thunderbolt. But because Vespiquen is just so tanky, staying in and trying to farm it down too much is usually a pretty tough situation. So we do draw that shield. And what's problematic about Vespiquen is that X-Scissor, like Body Slam we previously spoke about, it's one of those attacks where it does a fair amount of damage, but not so much where you really feel good about using the shield. Like you shield a Hydro Pump and you're like, Aha, gotcha. But you shield something like a body slam or an X scissor, and it's like that it just never feels all that satisfying. So here we are going to go ahead and eat this X scissor. And it looked like potentially he had under-tapped there. I think that he was trying to farm down a little bit more energy from that lantern. So we're going to try to feint this down. It's arguable whether or not he's got enough energy for Power Gem. And he does, so we do elect to shield. That would have been rather unfortunate had we not. So now we're going to get out of there with that lantern because we've got Noctowl there, and it's just going to do that. That is a hard matchup to stay into. Now we swapped first. We're going to do our best to burn through as much energy as possible. We do have the energy advantage, so we should walk out of this in a good position, at least a winning position. So I was trying to feint it down and ultimately ended up eating that that energy because we feinted out with fast attacks. And here is the psycho damage, or psychic damage. That is just a very tough charge move to do for the new mechanic. And here we just don't have enough energy to get through to the finish on that one. So we are going to be going into round 3, game 3. And here again, sticking with the same strategy. Don't lead Vigoroth, have it in the back as a safe switch. And it is interesting how much Gahinzel and I have mirrored each other on lead Pokemon throughout this. When you miss one of those first bubbles, you almost hope, like, I hope that this is the one that they elect to shield. So he didn't use a shield, so we're going to mirror that, not use a shield. Because I lost the preceding game, I should have CMP, so I should be able to walk out of this in a winning position. He does shield there, so now we are going to mirror that. And he has demonstrated that he likes to do like a last-minute switch. I was trying to be cognizant of that. Ultimately, he decided to stay into this. And now he's going to burn his shield. And now we have to decide, is it worth it to hold on to a fairly low health Noctowl to just come out of the lead matchup in the winning position, which we ultimately end up getting enough energy. He swaps out, and we are at least going to get some energy. Now he does have energy advantage on this Vigoroth, but the strategy, as I said previously, in the last run through, if you go to game 3, you can swap out the team. You don't pick Vigoroth. That at least makes them has the potential to catch them unawares. Now here, he doesn't have a shield. This is definitely going to knock out the Vigoroth, but it's going to let Noctowl come in and burn a bunch of energy. So we don't want, farm a bunch of energy. And as you can see, I was trying to swap out, at least let something take neutral damage from this Sky attack. That did not end up happening. So now he's able to swap out, but Venusaur has nothing that OrhoChris Spears. He doubly resists as a bug steal the grass, a move of Frenzy Plant. He doubly resists the poison move of Sludge Bomb. So we're just going to sit here and just load up on a ton of energy. Now there he used Sludge Bomb. I don't think it would have made a difference, but Frenzy Plant is a higher energy per damage move, so you're always going to want to use Frenzy Plant when it is equally as effective as Sludge Bomb. The only time you would use Sludge Bomb is if, for example, it was a fire type that's going to resist the grass attack, but not resist the Sludge Bomb. Otherwise, if it's equally resisted or equally super effective, always use Frenzy Plant. So in round 4, we are going up against Arranging Time. This is another challenger level trainer using a somewhat unique team composition, running Venusaur. You can definitely tell, I think, that he probably got that through a trade. Whenever someone has a Pokemon that is a Community Day move or a Legacy move, you can see that their CP is like well below the threshold for the respective league that you're working on. For example, 1500 here in Great League, you can assume that they just were unlucky on the trade. He's also got Wigglytuff, Noctowl, OrhoChris, Vigoroth, and then Magnezone. So some interesting picks there. This was after the tournament had started, just after the change to the charge moves, and I think the introduction of Charm was during this month, if memory serves. So he's definitely prepared in having 2 steel types to counteract potential Charm users. Luckily, that's not something that I was going to have to worry about. And here we're going to go Noctowl versus Noctowl. I don't recall who had CMP for this match. So since I got to the charge move first, potentially that means that I have it. He might be overcharging. And again, missing those bubbles on the fly. I think there's a strategy now where if you just put your finger on like the halfway point of the screen and just hold it there, it'll actually hit everything because of where the bubbles start from. But that's a more recent development in Pokemon Go charge move mechanics. So he mirrors me in both of those, just elects not to shield both times. And now we've got a Noctowl with enough energy almost to have a Sky Attack charged up. And he's coming in and burning his first shield. And burning the energy. Now there I probably would have not used that Body Slam. He was close enough to feigning me down where it was very unlikely, since I just used Sky Attack, that I was going to get to another one. And now he's coming in almost neutral energy with my Vigoroth that has 2 shields to his 1 shield. And now we're not going to farm too long. We're going to go into the Body Slam. Force him to either save this Vigoroth or burn his shield. He decides to let it go. And in the back we have Venusaur. Now this Venusaur, even with a shield advantage, is just not going to have enough gas to get over the finish line against OrhoChris. So we're going to doubly resist both the grass and the poison moves, and that's the end of this one. So we'll just move into the next match. And here we are for round 2. Not round 2, round 4, game 2 against Arranging Time. And we've got the same lead again, the Noctowl mirror match. See if we can hit that. Excellent. We managed to pull it off. Shock of the shocks. So he didn't shield, so I'm not going to shield. I'm going to mirror that. And because I lost the first round, he has CMP. I could have potentially tried to undertap. I didn't. So now we're going to burn this shield. And we know that it was a CMP tie because it didn't go back to the animation for another fast move. And now we need to decide, all right, do we hope that we can win this on IVs? Now there, it was arguable whether or not that was the right move. I've got enough energy built up that I could have unleashed that against this Vigoroth, burn the next shield, and then come in with Vigoroth. But if I swap in quickly, I'm hopeful that we can at least make this a close enough match. And if it comes down to IVs, so be it. So there we get the simultaneous knockout, and now I'm trying to hold out for the timer just to decide, all right, which one do we go with? I elect to go Venusaur, as does he. And now he's got one shield, I don't. I'm gonna eat that Sludge Bomb. But I'm just hoping to at least draw out his shield so that when Noctowl comes back in, it's immediately going to be able to use that super effective Sky Attack. And here he's actually able to get enough energy to tank the Sky Attack and get enough energy for a Sludge Bomb. But now with that energy gone, we can come in and go for the Sludge Bomb, and that is going to be GG. And the finals is against Who's John Gill. Very talented trainer, almost to the ace level at this point, knocking on the door. He does have Venusaur, Noctowl, Lantern, OrhoChris, Vigoroth, and Vespiquen. Again, the exact team that I ran in this cup earlier. And I believe at this point that he and I are the only two people left in the tournament that are undefeated. So we're going to hop into this championship match. We have a Noctowl lead into Vigoroth. And here, this is a losing matchup for Noctowl, but it's a situation where you can be comfortable enough or make it close enough that you're not feeling the need to swap out from the beginning. But you do want to at least draw that first shield, and now you can force them to burn the energy that they have. Now, he went with Bulldoze there. That might have been the misplay. I think he said afterwards that he had misclicked, but he does have enough energy to very quickly come back with another Body Slam. And I will answer with my own Body Slam. And now we are both no shields. He's going to get to his next charge move before I did, because he was in the matchup earlier. I swapped out into Vigoroth, and now we're going to have enough energy saved up where we can at least, I guess, not get off the charge move. So here, I'm not sure whether or not he has Rock Tomb, so we're going to do our best to burn through this energy as quickly as possible against the OrhoChris. And he swaps very quickly. I think we might have even swapped at the same time. So I get to Thunderbolt. Whether or not he was overcharging. So this is going to be a close one. He may have overcharged. I do get the second charge move off. And now we're just going to try to burn down what energy we can from the opposing OrhoChris. Force him to burn the energy that he does have, and then Noctowl can come in and hopefully... And that's kind of a unfortunate thing that you would have preferred him actually to knock out the Lantern so that you couldn't have any extra energy farmed. Because if Lantern had been knocked out, he would have been able to... he wouldn't have been able to get to that charge move. Because Noctowl is a tank, he's able to take that Heavy Slam, and we pull out game 1 of round 5. And in game 2 of the championships, we've got the Noctowl lead into Vigoroth. So both of us are sticking with the strategy that we had in game 1. I believe that's how game 1 was. He is going to store up a bunch of energy on the Vigoroth. He's either going to eat this, or I'm going to get the shield burnt. I was trying to switch there. He's now going to force me into a decision to either save that, burn that shield, or eat that energy. I elect to save the shield so that Vigoroth, if it's in a worse matchup, and that was a really good swap by, who was John Guild there. Now my Body Slam is going to go into a not very effective, into that steel typing of OrhoChris. And here, it's arguable whether or not I've got enough energy saved up. You don't want to force. You don't want to eat all that, waste all that energy. So you kind of want to force the shield. I've overcharged to make him think that it might be a bulldoze. He does now use the shield, and now I'm at least able to get through some damage into the opposing OrhoChris. It is going to be resistive, of course. So now we're just hoping to feint down this OrhoChris. We're hoping to get off the Body Slam, which we are successful to do. Now we're going to come in with not knowing how much energy he has saved up for, or on the Vigoroth. You kind of question whether or not you want to eat a bulldoze. He goes with Body Slam, thank goodness. And now we're in a position where we've got Noctowl in the back, a energy advantage but lower HP Lantern in a mirror match. And I think in this situation you probably prefer the more HP as opposed to the slightly greater energy. So this is going to come dangerously close to the knockout, if not get the knockout. And if we can get to that Thunderbolt, things might be different, but that is not going to be the case. And there's really nothing we can do on turning that one around. So the championships are going to go to game 3. And as you recall, in that final matchup, if it goes to game 3, it's okay to have a different strategy, not have the Vigoroth. So I've elected to go with that route here. We decide to lead again with Noctowl. And unless he's got a strong Rock Tomb to the face, this should be a matchup that Noctowl can come out of on the top. As we said, the meta set was Heavy Slam, I think, and Earthquake. But he does draw that shield, not wanting to risk it having Rock Tomb. Only getting the great shields, thank goodness. And now we're going to swap into Venusaur. Although it's at an energy disadvantage, I know that his Noctowl in the back, I'm going to want to burn this shield, or get him to burn a shield, and use up this Venusaur rather than leave it for to be a sitting duck later on. So he's going to get to another Body Slam. I'm close enough to a Frenzy Plant that will knock out this Vigoroth that it's worth it to use the shield. Here we do get the Excellent. Now he's going to come in probably with Noctowl. Oh, with OrhoChris actually. So he gets that knockout, and now I come back in with Noctowl, hoping to burn through that energy because a Earthquake into... Now here, it's going to be a close call. If he can get to a Waterfall before I get to a Earthquake, not a Waterfall, a Hydro Pump, then I'm going to be in a tough situation. I'm not sure whether or not I'm going to be able to survive it. Thank goodness for IVs and for the extra thickness. He does pull out, or does tank the Hydro Pump, and then we are able to, with that stored up energy from the Sky Attack, get the knockout on OrhoChris. Alright guys, that about wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're interested in Pokemon Go, competitive PvP, and basically anything Pokemon Go related, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss anything. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you've got any feedback, comments, questions, please leave those down below as well. And as always, happy catching.